Apparently the Mark 8 Golf R is an amazing driving car, but I have no idea because I've not properly driven mine yet. For obvious reasons. I found this car in its crash damage condition on an eBay listing. It had the front end caved in and the airbags all set off, so I knew it wasn't going to be a cheap or easy repair. But straight away we got to work stripping down the damaged front end, getting all of the wrecked panels off there, including the slam panel and the rad pack too. Then once a new one was fitted with some upgraded parts included too, it was then time to look at the damaged interior which we tackled in the last video. So that included removing the dashboard and replacing all of the seat belts, but now it's looking much fresher. But after all of that hard work, we were still stuck with an airbag warning light. So although progress has been good, we've still got so many repairs to do on this car, which we're going to do all of them in this video. So that means that we've got loads of work to do in this video. We've got mechanical repairs, we've got bodywork repairs, we've got paint work, and we've got electrical repairs to do as well. But I suppose we may as well start small and work our way up to the bigger stuff. So the first thing that I've got is a new washer fluid bottle because this one's got a hole in it. So with the old one off and the new one in place and fastened down, we can get that filled up with washer fluid and move on to the next job. And then the next repair is that we're missing the plug for the light bar on the grille. So until we can fix that, we're always going to have a headlamp warning light. Now these can be a nightmare to buy from main dealers, but luckily a company called PA Products contacted me and sent me out a massive care package with every plug I could possibly need for my Mark 8 Golf R. Now luckily I got away pretty lightly in terms of electrical damage on this car, so this little tiny thing is the only plug I should need. So I can pin the two wires into the plug and then we're going to check that on the car to make sure that it works before we properly wire it in. Now the two wires on the car are yellow and brown. I'm going to take an educated guess and put the red to the yellow and the black to the brown, and fingers crossed that works. But let's give it a try. And although it's pretty dim, this is the side that's definitely working. You can see the light just there. And this is the side that the plug was damaged on. And my educated guess was right. And you can see that that light is working too. So now I'm satisfied with my repair. I can really set it in stone by using these heat-on electrical connectors which solder it and insulate it in one go. And also loom tape it to tie it in with the rest. So there's another quick job ticked off the list. But while we're on the subject of lights, we've got another problem to look at. Because we do have a new pair of front lights for the car, which aren't damaged on the face, but one of them has some damage to the mounting points. So you can see this one here is okay, this one here is okay, but here and here are both damaged. And we could just fit that to the car and it'd probably be okay because it's got 3 mounting points left, but I don't want that to affect the durability of the light and the rebuild, but also the panel gaps as well. So I've been to TPS and picked up a headlight repair kit. There's been loads of times I've needed one of these, but this is the first car where they actually make one for it. So the factory headlight has a couple of holes here and so does the mounting point. So what I need to do is clean up where the damage is and then I can screw in the new mounting points into the headlight. So using a Dremel, I take off what's left but not needed off the headlight and screw in the repair bracket. And there we go, one new mounting point looking pretty much perfect, I'd say. We've still got one more to do though. Why they don't make those for every car, I have no idea. That is wicked. So you might remember from the last video, we still had the airbag light on the dash and we read it using the X-Tool reader. This time I'm going to read it using the OBD11 reader and see if it's telling me anything different. Because it's had a bit of time to reset now and do its thing, so I'm hoping for the best. So I've plugged the OBD11 reader into the OBD port and now it's time to fire up the OBD11 app. Now the great thing about this is not just diagnostics it can do, it can also do coding functions for your car as well. So turning on things like Apple CarPlay, comfort windows, different styles of DRLs, all sorts of options which might be on your car but not enabled by the main dealer. So it's detecting my car and it's super easy to scan with just the click of a button. And now we're scanning through over 27 modules on the car. And very quickly it's already picked up the airbag light, but it's showing a different fault to what it was showing before. This time we've only got one fault and it's for the driver's side rear safety belt tension igniter, and it says resistance too low. Let's look into it. You lot aren't going to believe this. I'm such a doofus. I've just stripped back the interior panel and look at this. The plug for the seatbelt isn't even plugged in. Wow. So let's get that in. If that's all it is, well, it's a result, I suppose, but I am an idiot. Okay, back on the OBD11 app, I can clear that code. Wow. Success. I'm so happy but so annoyed at myself. Here we go. And no airbag light. If you want to activate hidden features on your car, whether it be a VAG Group car or a BMW from E Series to I Series, make sure to grab yourself an OBD11 dongle using the link in the description and discount code SLIX. I can't believe that. Now, I have no idea if this next one's going to work. This is my radar sensor off the front of the Golf, and you may be able to see on the top there, one of the tabs has broken off, which is going to cause it to rattle around in its place and not do its job properly. Now, I can either replace this or try and repair it, and well, I've got nothing to lose by trying to repair it, so I may as well give it a shot. So out of what I've got left over from the car, I've made this very small piece of plastic here to roughly the same size as what's broken off the radar already, and also it matches the thickness of the other tabs. I have no idea if this is going to work, but I'm going to start by just trying to super glue this down roughly again to where the old one was, which is about there. And I don't think that looks too bad, but there's no way that that little bit of super glue is going to hold that in place on its own, considering it's going to clip behind this section of the grille here. It would help if I plug this in. I don't want to go too much here, just enough to let it seep into the plastic. You'll have to excuse my filming here, I didn't realise how zoomed in the camera was, but what I'm doing is super gluing the new tab on and then using plastic staples to hold it sturdy too, and once those are trimmed back, it looks pretty good. I don't think that's too bad. Now, I'm praying that me doing this here hasn't damaged the internals of the radar. I haven't gone deep at all, as you can see. So I'm praying, as I say, that it hasn't, but I can't see that it would have. But that now is, that's pretty solid, that is. So I'm going to try and fit this into the grille and see if my repairs worked. And there we go. That hasn't even got a mil of play in it. Now, like I said, if that has damaged the internals of the radar, it's not the end of the world, because that means that I would have had to replace it anyway, because I wouldn't have been able to fix that tab. But if it hasn't, that means we're all good, and that means that that can then be calibrated back to the car, and we should be ready to rock. So now that's repaired, we can put the grille back together. But while I've got the plastic staple gun out, I'm just going to use it to repair the arch liner too, because there was a very little split in this that definitely wasn't worth replacing, so a quick repair using that, and it's good to go. You may remember from one of the previous videos too that we had some issues with some of the coolant pipes being damaged and also the parts being on back order. Luckily, those have now shown up, so we can start swapping them over and hopefully get some coolant in the car. So while I start getting the parts ready for the next section of the video, Tom tackles taking off the last coolant pipe and replacing it with the brand new ones. Which does look stupidly fiddly now the new rad pack's on. So now we've got all of the pipes back on for the coolant, so we can finally get some in, but before we do that, we want to make sure it doesn't go to waste, so we're going to pressure test the system first. So we double check our work to make sure that the system is holding pressure and we're not going to lose coolant when we put it in. And you can see it's holding a delicious 15 psi, so that's no problems at all. We can now attach the vacuum filling attachment and put 6 litres of coolant into the engine. The way vacuum filling works is quite simple really. All it does is make a seal in the coolant system, suck all of the air out, and then pumps the coolant in to replace it, which means you're much less likely to get an airlock. And now we've got the car full of coolant. It doesn't seem to be leaking. We've got a little bit of splashage from... Oh, I say it doesn't seem to be leaking. Quite a lot back there. What could that be from earlier?
Yeah, no, that's when I took that pipe off the bottom.
Okay, that was already there. But yeah, we're holding pressure. Seems good. Got coolant in it. That's good. I think we should go and start it. Okay, well that seems pretty solid, so... maybe we should carry on. So I guess now what we need is a front end on the car. So I was a bit undecided with what to do with this wing because it'd make blending easier to leave it in place. But I think because we've got a little bit of an awkward dent here, an awkward dent here. This is all a little bit dented, only very slightly though, but it's also scratched through the paint itself. I think we're just going to change it and then just accept that we're going to have to blend the door too. So we can start getting the wings off by taking the 10 mils out from inside the bonnet, and then we've got to get the car jacked up in the air with the wheel off and the arch liner out too to be able to access the rest of them. So off comes the wheel and the arch liner. And now we can get to all the bolts we need to in order to take those wings off. Now there was a super awkward trim on the inside of the door shut which kind of covers all of the bolts, which almost seemed impossible to get off without taking the door off. I don't know how we're going to get it back in without doing that. But now the wing is removed and we can replace it with the ones that we got included with the car. And now the wings are on, it's time to put the headlights back in and give the car its face back so we can get those shuffled into place. These were quite awkward ones to put in if I'm being honest, but we can get all 5 of those bolts in, and that is the headlights then fitted too. So there we've got both new wings on. I haven't tightened up these bolts yet because we might want to play with the panel gap just a little bit. And both of the headlights in too, and they seem pretty eager to work because both of them already have turned on exactly the same. So I'm praying, fingers crossed, that they don't need coding into the car or anything daft. But let's face it, they probably do. So now the headlights are on, we can start looking at fitting the bumper up, which should be a fairly simple job. So once we've got an idea of how it goes on, we can then fit in the foam crash bar section and then start fastening the bumper up. And now it's really starting to look like a complete car. But there's still 2 more body panels to fit. Next up is the bonnet, so we can take the old one off and swap it out for the new black one, again which we got included with the car. Luckily, the new bonnet also came with new hinges, so we can bolt it in place and just play around with the panel gaps, knowing that those hinges aren't damaged. So while Tom's putting in the washer jets on the bonnet, I'm going to fit the final piece, which is the grille. Well, I've decided I quite like a black Golf R. Obviously the blue accents definitely help. Now, we've still got some work to do on the panel gaps as you can see here, but we're going to come back to that later in the video. I've still got even more stuff to do, but for tonight, I'm calling it. So it's now the next day and, well, I've come into what is pretty much a complete car. I could go and take this out on the road now and it would be, well, perfectly road legal. It's got an MOT because it's under 3 years old, so I don't have to get that done. It's got no warning lights on the dash. So the next step, I suppose, is paint. Actually, not quite. I just remembered one thing which has really been bugging me, and I'm sure it's been bugging some of you guys too, and that is this gas bonnet strut. Now, Racing Line have sent this out to me along with all of the other bits and also some more which you're going to see in future videos, which is super exciting. But this definitely needs doing. Now, this should be a super easy install. It should be this off here and then replace it with this. Then this is the bit that I find strange because VW have already given you a place to put this end on, and then I've just attached this end here, and then I can just clip that in and take off the old one like that, and now we have a gas strut on the Mark 8 Golf. Yes, that's better. Nice one, Racing Line. Now, although the front end on this doesn't actually look that bad in black, it's definitely not going to stay that colour, so I'm going to give it a clean down quick. So I'm going to scotch the entire front end down and get it all nice and matte looking, ready for the new paint. But it's not just the front end we're going to have to do, because when you do repair jobs like this, you've got to blend them as well. But we'll come back to that a little bit later in the video. I want to get the front end at least prepped, ready for paint before we get down to the body shop. So now the bonnet's more or less prepped, but there is some scratches just here on the A-pillar, but I'm not sure if the painter's going to want to paint here or not. It's a possibility he doesn't, so if he doesn't, I'd like to try and save what's here and see if we can get that back to looking tip-top. And to do that, I'm going to try using a little bit of 3000 sandpaper and wet sanding the area to try and remove the scratches, followed by polishing it up and just seeing what we can do with it really. And I'm happy to report that the result just off that is pretty damn good, but I think I can get it a little bit better. So an improvement made there. We've just got to finish scotching off the front end. I'm not going to do the bumper while it's on the car because I just risk damaging the headlights or the trims, so just the wings to do, and then we can look at pushing forward. So now, I've got the Golf pulled out of the garage because it's time to take it down to the booth where we're going to be spraying it. And I've actually got a little bit motivated to give it a bit of a tidy up in here because sometimes it does get a bit out of hand. But that's mainly down to the guys at Mart because they've sent me out some bits which made me realise I probably should start looking after this place a little bit better. The first thing of which being this new tool chest complete with every tool I could possibly ever need, and also some extra storage too. And they've also sent me out this new 2-ton, very low entry jack with these plastic wheels as well, which makes it super silent to drag around the garage. But you'll be seeing plenty of those in the future videos, but if you want to grab them for yourself, I'm going to leave the links in the description. Sometimes my luck is next level. I've just pulled up down the body shop and one of these was poking out, and I've just done this to the boot which didn't need painting, but I suppose now it does. I mean, if it's going to happen at any time, the best time for it to happen is right now because, well, we're just about to get started on getting this painted. So not a great start to painting this car, or to driving it for that matter, but I can get that area repaired by putting a tiny bit of filler in just to fill in the chips, and then we can start scotching the doors up, ready for those to be blended when we repair the front end. And we did also find a dent bang in the middle of the door, which we're definitely going to want to fix whilst we're doing this repair. But I'm quite happy to say, with this being a salvage car and that being the only bit of filler on it, that's something to be proud of, I think. But we've got some more stripped down work to do because we don't want to be masking around wing mirrors, so we remove those from the doors. And also the same with the door handles as well. Then I could pull off the window seals. And also the wing mirror on the other side too. But now the rest of the car is more or less ready for paint. We can take off the front bumper, strip that down and get that prepared too. We then decided it'd be a good idea to prime this bumper, so we got it straight in the booth that night and got it primed ready for the next day. And then the following morning we got the car ready by giving it a final panel wipe before pulling it in the booth. Now, one thing that was important too is making sure the colour match is right for the paint that we've got to what we're going to be painting the rest of the car in. So we did a spray out card and compared that to the colour of the car to make sure that we're going to be happy with it once the rest of the car is also polished up. But I think personally that looked pretty good, so now we can get the car inside the booth and get it all completely masked off to make sure we don't get paint anywhere that we don't want it. And once all of that was done, again a final panel wipe down to make sure there is no dust or contamination on the surface of the car. And then we could get the lapis blue paint mixed. And then Callum can finally smash out paint in the car. So with the paint poured into the gun and the booth fired up, we can finally see what this car is going to look like in one colour. So there we have it, one Golf R which has been completely repaired. I mean, we've got some reassembly to do, we've got some flattening and polishing done, but it is now got no warning lights and is back in one colour. But we have some more work to do from here because we have the modification side of things to start. But to see that, you're going to have to wait until next time, so make sure you're subscribed, like this video, and I'll catch you next time.